B&B spoilers. Why is Ridge such a jerk when he's with Brooke Logan? Now that Ridge Forrester has resolved his complicated love life on the Bold and the Beautiful, he's ready to get back to work at Forrester Creations. And forcing his father into retirement again seems to be at the top of his to-do list. Here's what's coming up next on the CBS soap. Keep reading for all the details. Thanksgiving will be a tough one for the Forrester family this year, and Eric Forrester, John McCook, will end up in a heated debate with his son Ridge, Thorson K. Ridge is back to business. Remember a few years ago when Eric almost died and his son was trying to force him into giving up his remaining power at Forrester Creations? Well, Ridge is back at it, and B&B spoilers say that this time around his father is going to put up a fight. New promos for the soap show the father and son bickering over his retirement next week. Seeing as how Eric Forrester doesn't go to work every day, we're not sure retirement is the right word. Basically, Ridge wants Eric to sign over whatever rights he still is holding on to. Is Brooke to blame? That means Ridge probably has a trick or two up his sleeve and wants to make some changes at the company that he knows his father won't approve of. Word on the internet is that it might have something to do with his new/ex-wife Brooke Logan or her daughter's line hope for the future. The Bold and the Beautiful viewers can't help but notice that Ridge tends to act like a jerk to everyone else, his father included, when he is married to Brooke. Taylor Hayes, Rebecca Budig, definitely brought out the better side of the Forrester Creations heir. Do you think that Brooke is to blame for Ridge pressuring his dad? If he married Taylor instead, would he and Eric Forrester still be having this conversation? The rain hammered against the glass walls of the Forrester Creations CEO office, a perfect soundtrack to the storm brewing inside Ridge Forrester's soul. He stood alone, the city lights below blurred by the downpour, his reflection a ghost of the man he was supposed to be. Just hours ago, he had walked away from Brooke again. This time, the reason was trivial, a miscommunication over a new HFTF line designer. But the action, the callous dismissal, was anything but. Why do I do this? The question, old as his love for Brooke, gnawed at him. He had chosen Taylor, seeking the peace and simple adoration he felt he didn't have to fight for. But every minute spent in Taylor's calm orbit was a minute spent in the suffocating silence of denial. He wasn't a man built for calm. He was built for fire, for the tumultuous, dangerous destiny that was Brooke Logan. His jerk behavior wasn't malice. It was a desperate, unconscious plea for proof. He needed Brooke to fight for him, to shatter the calm, because deep down, Ridge Forrester, the celebrated designer, the son of Eric and Stephanie, was terrified of unconditional love. The echo of the loom. Ridge walked toward the original design table, running his fingers over the smooth, worn oak. It was here, in a moment of drunken, teenage angst, that his father, Eric, had once told him, "A masterpiece isn't finished when there is nothing left to add, but when there is nothing left to take away. But Ridge, you and I, we are never finished. We thrive on the unmaking." Ridge had internalized that. He didn't just design dresses, he designed relationships, and he had come to believe that the only way to prove the strength of his bridge with Brooke was to stress test it until it splintered. Taylor was the perfect respite, the safe harbor he ran to when the strain became too much. But Brooke was the true canvas, the one he had to tear up and repaint perpetually. He sank onto the sofa, the plush leather offering no comfort, and the memory returned with blinding clarity. It wasn't about Taylor or Steffi or Thomas. It was about Stephanie. He flashed back to a decade earlier, a moment he had almost erased. He and Brooke were blissfully happy, a rare interlude of peace. Stephanie, ever the puppet master, had cornered him. "You look settled, Ridge," she had purred, her eyes sharp. "You've finally given up the drama, haven't you? You're just like Eric now. Comfortable, predictable. Brooke will grow bored of you. She needs a challenge, Ridge. She needs a fight. And frankly, so do you. You are your mother's son. You crave the battle." Stephanie hadn't meant to be kind, but her cruel words had landed like a prophecy. "Ridge, The man who prided himself on being the Ridge Forester, the volatile, passionate alpha, found his greatest fear articulated. He was becoming boring. He was becoming Eric. He realized that his mother had conditioned him and Brooke to believe that their love was only real when it was earned through trauma. From that day forward, whenever Brooke offered him gentle, stable, unwavering love, Ridge felt a cold, inexplicable dread. He would manufacture a crisis, a flirtation with Taylor, an unreasonable demand about hope, an unforgivable insult, just to provoke the familiar, passionate conflict. The subsequent fight, the tears, the dramatic breakup, and the inevitably passionate reunion were, to him, the necessary ingredients to prove their destiny hadn't gone soft. His jerk behavior was a cry for conflict, a demand for the drama he equated with life itself. The serpent in the garden. His introspection was broken by a soft knock. Thomas, always appearing when the air hung thick with disaster, entered. "Rough night, Dad." Thomas's eyes held a practiced blend of concern and calculated triumph. Ridge merely grunted, grabbing a decanter. "It's over, Thomas. I told Brooke I needed space." "Good. You belong here. With Taylor." "With the Foresters," Thomas said, settling into a chair, his voice smooth. "Brooke is inherently a Logan. Look at the situation. She chose Hope's chaotic HFTF team over your design vision. She's always drawn to the unstable, whether it's Deacon, Bill, or now, Hope's reckless business decisions." "She was defending her daughter," Ridge countered, the defense feeling thin and automatic. "No, Dad. She was testing you," Thomas insisted, leaning forward. "It was a lie, but it was perfectly aimed. She knew that if she sided with Hope, you'd run straight to Mom. And she knew that you'd eventually come crawling back, because she wants to see how far she can push you before you break. It's her game, Dad. She wants to own you, not love you." The word testing hit Ridge like a physical blow. It echoed Stephanie's ghost whisper. She needs a challenge. Was Thomas right? Was Brooke's unconditional devotion merely a mask for a deeper, manipulative plot? Did she purposely set him up for failure just to watch him crumble and rebuild? Thomas continued to pour poison, his words exploiting the shame Ridge felt over his last failure with Brooke. "You need a woman who accepts the masterpiece as is, Dad. Mom doesn't try to deconstruct you. Brooke, she just likes the blueprint for its potential drama." Ridge didn't need any more convincing. The seeds of self-doubt had been planted decades ago by his mother, and Thomas had expertly watered them. He stood up, his gaze hardening. "I'm done with the fight. I'm done with the unmaking. I'm done with Brooke, the unbreakable woman." The next morning, Ridge showed up at Brooke's house not to reconcile, but to finalize the separation. He was armed with the conviction that he was escaping a manipulator, not abandoning his true love in the living room. She wasn't crying. She wasn't begging. She was standing tall, a silk Forester gown draped perfectly, her face a mask of weary resolve. This was not the Brooke he had designed in his head. "I need you to sign the papers, Brooke," he said, his voice clipped, adopting the full jerk persona. "It's time we ended this cycle. I need peace, and I can't find it here." Brooke didn't move toward him. She simply looked at him, her legendary blue eyes clear and unwavering. "Peace? You think peace is what you lack, Ridge? You chase chaos, and you call it destiny. You're twisting this, Brooke. You put your daughter's questionable business agenda before our marriage." "Stop," Brooke interrupted, holding up a hand. The simplicity of the command stunned him. Brooke never stopped. She argued, she cried, she pleaded. "I'm not twisting anything, Ridge. For 40 years, I have allowed you to project your own instability onto me. You run to Taylor not because she's better, but because she's a mirror for your idealized self. The man who doesn't waffle, the man who is settled. But that man isn't you, Ridge." He felt the familiar surge of righteous anger, the need to deflect his pain onto her. "Is that what you tell Deacon when you console yourself? That I am the unstable one?" The insult was low, deliberately cruel. But instead of flinching, Brooke laughed, a short, sharp sound devoid of humor. You still think the conflict is the point, don't you? You still believe that if I don't collapse and beg you back, it means I never loved you. She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a devastating whisper. You are a jerk to me, Ridge, because you are terrified of the day I stop chasing you. You equate my unconditional love with weakness, and your inability to ruin me is the only thing that keeps you from believing you're undeserving of me. Ridge felt the floor disappear. He had been so focused on proving her instability, her Logan-ness, her darkness, that he had failed to see his own terror. Brooke wasn't manipulating him. She was the only stable force in his life, and that stability made him panic. It's not a test, Ridge, she finished, her voice thick with finality. This time it's a lesson. I will not be the woman who validates your fear anymore. You made your choice. Go find your peace. But don't come back looking for the fire you started. She turned and walked out, leaving him standing alone in the silent, sunlit room. No tears, no desperate final kiss, no declaration of eternal destiny, just a quiet exit, the design of solitude. Ridge remained rooted there for what felt like an eternity. The truth, delivered without melodrama, was heavier than any soap opera plot twist. He wasn't the victim of a Logan's manipulation. He was the perpetrator of his own destruction. His jerk behavior wasn't a flaw in his love. It was the mechanism of his deepest insecurity, the fear that if he was truly, peacefully happy, the story would end, and he would lose the passionate identity his mother had instilled in him. Later that evening, Thomas was caught on a hot mic, bragging to Steffi about how he had convinced Ridge that Brooke was playing a game. The recording instantly leaked to Bill Spencer, who immediately forwarded it to the entire Forrester family, confirmed Brooke's purity and Ridge's foolishness. Ridge listened to the recording on repeat, the sound of his son's cold calculation echoing the same manipulative tone Stephanie had used long ago. He hadn't been betrayed by Brooke. He had been betrayed by the very narrative he had always sought refuge in, the idea that conflict was love. He looked at the signed separation papers on the mahogany desk. Brooke hadn't signed them. She had left them blank. A small, cruel sign of hope? Or an invitation for him to finish the destruction he started? The answer was clear. He picked up his pen, signing the divorce papers with a steady hand. He was a jerk. He was a waffler. He was the problem. But for the first time in his life, Ridge Forrester had clarity. He didn't run to Taylor this time. He just stood still, accepting the heavy cloak of solitude. The bridge was finally down. And this time, it wasn't Brooke who set the fire. It was Ridge, the master designer, who finally destroyed his own masterpiece. Not to rebuild it, but to learn how to live without the comforting cycle of drama. The true spoiler wasn't Brooke's betrayal, but Ridge's own shocking realization that he was his own worst enemy. The only destiny left was the one he had to forge alone. Brooke met him in the living room. She wasn't crying. She wasn't begging. She was standing tall, a silk Forrester gown draped perfectly, her face a mask of weary resolve. This was not the Brooke he had designed in his head. I need you to sign the papers, Brooke, he said, his voice clipped, adopting the full jerk persona. It's time we ended this cycle. I need peace, and I can't find it here. Brooke didn't move toward him. She simply looked at him, her legendary blue eyes clear and unwavering. Peace? You think peace is what you lack, Ridge? You chase chaos and you call it destiny. You're twisting this, Brooke. You put your daughter's questionable business agenda before our marriage. Stop, Brooke interrupted, holding up a hand. The simplicity of the command stunned him. Brooke never stopped. She argued. She cried. She pleaded. I am not twisting anything, Ridge. For 40 years, I have allowed you to project your own instability onto me. You run to Taylor not because she's better, but because she's a mirror for your idealized self. The man who doesn't waffle, the man who is settled. But that man isn't you, Ridge. He felt the familiar surge of righteous anger, the need to deflect his pain onto her. Is that what you tell Deacon when you console yourself? That I am the unstable one? The insult was low, deliberately cruel. But instead of flinching, Brooke laughed, a short, sharp sound devoid of humor. You still think the conflict is the point, don't you? You still believe that if I don't collapse and beg you back, it means I never loved you. She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a devastating whisper. You are a jerk to me, Ridge, because you are terrified of the day I stop chasing you. You equate my unconditional love with weakness, and your inability to ruin me is the only thing that keeps you from believing you're undeserving of me. Ridge felt the floor disappear. He had been so focused on proving her instability, her Logan-ness, her darkness, that he had failed to see his own terror. Brooke wasn't manipulating him. She was the only stable force in his life, and that stability made him panic. It's not a test, Ridge, she finished, her voice thick with finality. This time it's a lesson. I will not be the woman who validates your fear anymore. You made your choice. Go find your peace. But don't come back looking for the fire you started. She turned and walked out, leaving him standing alone in the silent, sunlit room. No tears, no desperate final kiss, no declaration of eternal destiny. Just a quiet exit, the design of solitude. Ridge remained rooted there for what felt like an eternity. The truth, delivered without melodrama, was heavier than any soap opera plot twist. He wasn't the victim of a Logan's manipulation. He was the perpetrator of his own destruction. His jerk behavior wasn't a flaw in his love. It was the mechanism of his deepest insecurity, the fear that if he was truly, peacefully happy. The spoilers Wednesday, December 3rd. Eric in crisis again? The bold and the beautiful spoilers for Wednesday, December 3rd, 2025 tease a new storyline arc coming, and it's about time. What now, Eric? Now that the Luna no Zoa, Lisa Yamada, mess seems to be over for good this time, it's time to move on to a brand new story arc for at least 4 to 6 weeks. Check out our weekly BNB spoilers here. This time we're going to focus on Eric Forrester, John McCook, who hasn't done much over the last year except try to reunite Brooke Logan, Catherine Kelly Lang, and Ridge Forrester, Torsten Kay. On Wednesday, it's Brooke who is blindsided when Donna Logan, Jennifer Garais, gives her some big news about Eric. What could be going on with him now? Has he started coughing up blood again? Is he ready to retire again? Or does he want to take back his spot as the CEO of Forrester Creations? All of these stories have been done before, but why not repeat them, right? After all, we never learned what ailment Eric actually had 2 years ago, so John Finnegan Tanner Novlin may not have been able to cure it permanently. Read this. The bold and the beautiful spoilers. December 6th story developments. Here's what BNB fans can expect. After Liam Spencer, Scott Clifton, was recently dying, but not really, we are not sure we can handle another death and dying story with a happy ending. But it looks like the show might be headed there again. Bill versus Ridge. While Brooke gets some shocking news about Eric, Dollar Bill Spencer, Don Diamant, takes on Ridge Forrester in Katie Logan's Heather Tom defense. He can't believe FC would just replace her without even telling her, but Ridge has reasons. He really believed Katie was better off taking some time away from it all and not dealing with the PR fallout from Luna's actions. Bill just takes this as Ridge not having enough faith in his Katie to do the job right. Will Ridge be shocked when Bill tells him that he offered Katie a position at Spencer Publications? Will she even take it? It will be a big change for Katie, but maybe it is the change that she needs. The fluorescent lights of the Forrester Creations showroom seemed overly harsh on Wednesday morning, reflecting off the slick, obsidian runway like a pool of anxiety, a tension thicker than the finest silk hung in the air, a familiar, acrid mix of ambition, resentment, and fear that always preceded a major family confrontation. Ridge Forrester, clad in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit, paced near the grand double doors, his brow furrowed into a permanent state of artistic disapproval. Brooke Logan, his perennial muse and current wife, stood nearby, attempting to soothe him with a hand on his forearm, a gesture that only seemed to fuel his agitation. "It's not right, Logan," Ridge muttered, his voice a low growl that carried the weight of 1,000 past family feuds. "Dad shouldn't be here. Not today. Not with this stress." Brooke sighed, her eyes drifting toward the central office where Eric Forrester, the patriarch, was already working, despite the doctor's explicit orders to rest. "Eric is Forrester Creations, Ridge. He always has been. If there's a crisis brewing, he'll face it head-on, doctor's orders or not." The crisis, as always, circled around control and a deep-seated fear of irrelevance. For the last 6 months, Eric had been distant, secretive, and increasingly withdrawn from the day-to-day operations, preferring to work alone in the design room, sketching what he vaguely referred to as his legacy collection. But the financials told a different story. The Hope for the Future line, the company's cornerstone, was hemorrhaging money on what seemed like unexplained, massive vendor payments, and no one, not even Chief Financial Officer Ridge, could trace the full outflow. The doors to Eric's office swung open, and the man himself emerged, standing tall despite the tremor in his hands. Eric, magnificent even in his weariness, wore a look of stubborn defiance. Behind him, Quinn Fuller, his wife, hovered, a worried shadow in a designer sheath dress. Her eyes darted nervously between Eric and Ridge, calculating the fastest escape route from the inevitable explosion. "The whole family is here, Eric," Ridge announced, his voice snapping with authority. "Let's get this over with. The quarterly report is catastrophic. We need to know where the missing funds went, and we need to know now before the board meets." Eric's jaw tightened. "The funds were allocated to a special project. A project I approved. A project vital to the future of Forrester Creations." Brooke stepped forward, her maternal instincts kicking in. "Eric, please. This isn't good for you. Just tell us. Where did the money go?" Before Eric could answer, Quinn's phone chimed. It was an encrypted email from an anonymous source. She paled as she read the single attached document. It was a wire transfer confirmation for $15 million, dated yesterday, sent not to a fabric house, but to a shell company in the Cayman Islands. The beneficiary, a company named Eternity. Quinn lifted her head, her face a mask of shock and dawning realization. "Eric, what is Eternity?" she whispered, the quiet tone more devastating than any shout. Eric looked at her, and in his eyes she saw not defiance, but an unbearable sadness. "It was my escape, Quinn. My way to prove I still matter. A private venture. I needed to create something without interference." Ridge exploded. "You bankrupted Hope for the Future? You used the company's funds for a secret, private line? Dad, are you trying to destroy your own legacy?" The accusation, the raw, cutting edge of Ridge's eternal rivalry, was too much. Eric clutched his chest, his breath catching in a ragged, whistling gasp. The color drained from his face, leaving his distinguished features ghostly white. "Eric!" Quinn screamed, lunging forward. He staggered, eyes wide with terror and pain, and crumpled to the floor with a heavy, sickening thud. The pristine marble floor of Forrester Creations, the empire he built, became the cold, hard stage for his most devastating crisis yet. The emergency room waiting area at Cedar Sinai was a stark, beige battlefield for the Forrester family's emotional war. Hours had passed, stretching into an agonizing eternity defined only by the endless, rhythmic beeping of nearby monitors. Ridge was slumped in a molded plastic chair, his hands running through his thick hair, the image of the invincible designer shattered. Brooke sat next to him, gently stroking his back, their mutual fear momentarily overriding the years of history and conflict. Across the room, Quinn paced, her anxiety manifesting as fierce, barely contained rage. She stopped, turning a venomous gaze on Ridge. "This is your fault, Ridge," she hissed, her voice low and dangerous. "The doctor said it was acute stress. You pushed him. You drove him to his knees, not just with your accusations, but with your constant need to erase him, to take over everything he built. Quinn. Ridge shot back, standing up so fast his chair scraped loudly on the floor. He stole from the company. He jeopardized everyone's livelihood. And where have you been, his devoted wife? Why didn't you see the signs? You were supposed to be protecting him, not enabling his madness. He was suffering. Quinn's eyes welled with tears of guilt and anger. He felt useless. You made him feel like a decorative piece of furniture in his own home, Ridge. He needed to feel like Eric Forrester, the creator, not your shadow. The door opened and Donna Logan, Brooke's sister and Eric's other great love, rushed in, her face pale with worry, clutching a jar of honey, a small, desperate offering of comfort. Where is he? Is he okay? Donna's voice was thin, bordering on a cry. Brooke hurried to her sister. They haven't given us a full update yet, honey. He collapsed right in the showroom. Donna looked across the room at Quinn, the woman who had replaced her, and for once there was no rivalry, only shared pain. This is too much, Donna choked out, sinking into a chair. He deserves peace. He gave his life to this family, to that company. He deserved to be cherished. Ridge watched the three women, the constants in his father's chaotic emotional life, and the weight of his own guilt settled heavily on him. Was Quinn right? Had his ambition blinded him to Eric's fragility? He thought back to their last conversation, where Eric had dismissed his designs as commercial and soulless. He thought I was taking the heart out of Forrester Creations. Ridge confessed, his voice rough. He said my vision was too safe, too predictable. Maybe the eternity line was him trying to reclaim the passion we all lost. It doesn't matter what it was, Ridge, Brooke said softly, looking at the door. All that matters now is that he comes out of this. Suddenly, the door creaked open, and Dr. Phillips, a man whose face held the neutral grimness of bad news, stepped out. Silence descended, heavy and absolute. Family of Eric Forrester. They all surged forward. He's stable, the doctor started, and a collective sigh of relief swept through the room. It was a severe vasovagal syncope, complicated by extreme hypertension, a heart event. He's incredibly stressed. We're moving him to recovery for observation. But there's something else. He paused, looking specifically at Ridge and Quinn. While stabilizing him, we had to review his documentation, and the hospital records show a living will was filed with us 6 weeks ago. Quinn gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. That's standard practice, isn't it? Ridge asked, trying to sound calm, though a cold dread was pooling in his stomach. Normally, yes, Dr. Phillips conceded, but this document wasn't just a directive for life support. It included a power of attorney clause that is highly unusual, effective immediately upon any health event that renders him unconscious or incapacitated for more than 24 hours. And it's about more than just his health care. The doctor's gaze landed squarely on Quinn. It specifically names Ms. Fuller as the sole decision-maker for all medical, personal, and financial affairs, including his voting shares in Forrester Creations, effective 9 a.m. yesterday, Tuesday, December 2nd. Ridge felt the floor tilt beneath him. Yesterday, Eric had planned this. He had known the confrontation was coming, and he had preemptively given Quinn, his current wife, a woman Ridge deeply distrusted, absolute control over his life and the company. No, he wouldn't, Ridge whispered, shaking his head in denial. He would never do that to me, to the family. I have the document here, Mr. Forrester, the doctor said, holding up a file. The signatures are all verified. Quinn, who had been listening in horrified shock, took a step back. She hadn't known. Eric hadn't told her. This wasn't a gesture of trust. It felt like a silent, overwhelming burden. She looked at Ridge, seeing the immediate, fiery hatred reignite in his eyes. The gloves were officially off. This changes everything, Ridge snarled, pointing a finger at Quinn. You think you can play the worried wife while holding the keys to the kingdom? You won't get away with this. I'll contest that document, and I will expose this eternity venture. We'll find out exactly what kind of desperate gamble he was running. Donna stepped between them, her small frame surprisingly firm. Stop it, both of you. He could be dying, and all you care about is the company's shares. Suddenly, the drama of the room was interrupted by a low, insistent hum emanating from Quinn's purse. It was the phone she had been holding earlier, the one that received the anonymous email. She fumbled with it, the screen displaying a new, encrypted message. This time, it wasn't a wire transfer. It was a scanned image of a contract. Quinn's breath hitched as she opened the file. It was a binding agreement for the sale of the Eternity fashion line, not to a rival company, but to a shadowy investment group based in Dubai. The date on the contract was today, Wednesday, December 3rd. The timestamp was 8:45 a.m., just 15 minutes before Eric collapsed. But that wasn't the shocking part. The contract required 2 signatures. Eric's, which was clearly visible, and a cosigner, identified only by an initials, BL. Quinn's eyes narrowed as she looked up. They landed on Brooke Logan, who was comforting a distraught Donna, her face the picture of innocent concern. The full weight of the truth, the twist that would tear the Forrester family apart, hit Quinn with the force of a physical blow. "Brooke," Quinn whispered, holding the phone out, the contract displayed on the screen. "I know why Eric was so stressed. I know where the money went. And I know who the cosigner is on the sale of the Eternity line. It's you." Brooke froze, the color draining from her cheeks, her soothing hand falling away from Donna's shoulder. She looked at the image, her eyes wide with a terror that rivaled Eric's just hours earlier. "BL," Quinn stated, her voice rising in accusation, echoing in the sterile silence of the waiting room. "Brooke Logan, you helped him drain the company, and you arranged the sale of his private line right before he collapsed. You engineered this entire crisis. Why?" Ridge, reeling from the loss of control and the revelation of Quinn's power, turned to his wife, his face a storm of confusion and betrayal. The day that began with a crisis for Eric had ended with a full-blown war between the women who claimed to love him. Eric was in crisis, yes, but the real shock was just beginning to unfold, threatening to consume the entire Forrester legacy. Word count, 1512 words. Grade level, creative writing / fictional narrative, standard / advanced. Genre, soap opera / drama. Suggestions for follow-up. That was a dramatic Wednesday. The introduction of the BL, twist, and Quinn's immediate power of attorney throws the entire Forrester clan into chaos. This draft is right around the 1,500-word mark and definitely captures the high-stakes drama of a typical BNB crisis. To keep the story going, let me know if you would like to dive deeper on the Brooke revelation. What was Brooke's motive for co-signing the Eternity contract? Was it to save Eric from Ridge, or was it a power play of her own? We can write the next scene detailing her frantic explanation. The company takeover. Quinn now controls Eric's shares. How does she use this power? Does she align with Ridge, or does she use it to save her marriage from Brooke and Donna? Eric's recovery.